everything you need to know about this awesome Irvine alternative. Let's get started. So here we are in Orange County, and we're going to talk about everything that you need to know about this Irvine alternative. Here's Irvine right here, and then we're going to talk about
Dun, 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 dun.
Lake Forest, which is right next to Irvine. So obviously this border right here, it borders Irvine right here. And Sean, why were you laughing at the beginning of this video?
Because there's an ongoing joke, and I don't mean to like disparage anybody, because actually I don't see like Lake Forest being an Irvine alternative as like a disrespectful thing at all. I actually think that's kind of nice. We kind of call Lake Forest to ourselves Irvine Light, because obviously geographically speaking, similar to Irvine, obviously given that they share a pretty huge substantial border.
Yeah.
Just kind of the setup. There's a lot of similarities with Irvine. So I find Lake Forest pretty awesome. Obviously, the median price point of Lake Forest is cheaper than Irvine, because Irvine's incredibly expensive these days.
So you want to talk about that first?
Sure.
I don't know why certain residents in Lake Forest, they really, really don't like it when you compare Irvine to Lake Forest, but they are similar in a lot of ways. But one way they're becoming dissimilar, and that's a good thing, is that
it's the budget, man.
The budget, yeah.
The median price point in Orange County obviously has gone up pretty nicely, right? So 12% year over year. In fact, Orange County's metro market is the fastest appreciating in the entire country. The secret's kind of out. People know and have been flocking to Orange County, not just from within states. So we get people calling all the time from Northern California, like the Bay Area, as well as Los Angeles area, and as well as the entire West Coast and East Coast and every continent except for Antarctica. One day a penguin will give us a call from there. But in the meantime, people just love them some Orange County. So Orange County's had nice appreciation, right? So that 1.4 million for a single family residence. So for those who don't know the technical terms, that's just like a house, right? Detached structure, a house. Now in Lake Forest, the price point is actually slightly below that of the median price point of Orange County, which is kind of amazing because Lake Forest is getting in a great location, right? Very centrally located, just south of Irvine, but very centrally located. Although you have to take these this data with a little bit of grain of salt, because the entire city has only had 39 homes sell for the entire month. So before we continue, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Sean Dazad.
And I'm Courtney Dazad.
And we're licensed real estate agents here in the state of California. And if you're watching this channel, you might be thinking, wow, Sean, I love Orange County. I love the beautiful blue skies. I love the Pacific Ocean. I love the perfect weather. I can't wait to move in here now. The problem is I'm not local. I may be out of state. I may be even out of the country, so I don't know what to do. And I totally get that. That's why you're going to reach out to us. We can have that conversation, find out specifically what you're looking for, and be your boots on the ground. We can actually find out specifically what you're looking for, and I'll give you like virtual tours of not just the properties, but the neighborhoods as well. So that way, when you do come out here, your time is spent super efficiently. So what you want to do is you want to give us a call or shoot us a text.
Yes, that number is a cell phone, so you can call us or text us, or you can use WhatsApp if you're outside the country.
So these things can skew dramatically. Like as you could see, like in April, it was 1.6 million. And then May dropped, to about a little bit under 1.4, and then June a little bit above 1.4. So you're going, oh my gosh, like this is terrible news that it dropped $200,000. You're like, no, that's just kind of the skew, because Lake Forest does have some very rather expensive communities, like newer communities, that could skew things if more than a few of them sell in a given month compared to, let's say, the less expensive properties. Now so snapshot, right? Lake Forest median home price 1.387. Let's see what Irvine is. 2.36, like $1 million. $1 million more for a similar general geographic location. And again, Lake Forest is great. I love me some Lake Forest. I don't see how Irvine is $1 million premium. Yeah. That's why we're kind of really zeroing in on Lake Forest being a fantastic option, because inevitably when someone reaches out to me about Irvine is great. Obviously, there's a reason why it's this high. But because it's a very competitive market and everything like that, I inevitably talk to people, asking people, okay, what's important for you about moving here? What's important to you about what you perceive as Irvine and wanting to be there? And so depending on what that is, I give multiple cities as options, right? And Lake Forest is on my short list of cities that are alternatives to Irvine, just because one, you may find you obviously get more bang for your buck, but in general, you're also just getting more homes served to you that could fit the bill. So I just like to give you more options in the event that, if you're Irvine or bust, that's totally fine. We certainly have clients that are looking just at Irvine, But I can't tell you how many people that kind of called us about Irvine, but then decided, hey, you know what? Maybe one of these other cities actually makes a bit more sense, not just for budget, but just kind of like how it feels to them. So it's obviously not my job to tell you, oh, this is the only place for you. It's more like, okay, here's some options, and let's kind of talk about that.
And then, just to give you some, some of the reasons that people love Irvine is, and we'll talk about them, and then talk about how Lake Forest compares. I mean, obviously, so let's just go back a little bit. You can see that Irvine is very centrally located. It's literally the geographic center of Orange County. Lake Forest, while a little bit farther south, it is also fairly centrally located in Orange County. It's obviously right next to the Irvine Spectrum Center, which is a huge reason why people like Irvine, because this is a very big job area right here. And then also, this right here, this border right here, this is a huge job area. There's lots of different office complexes and stuff around here because Irvine is the, commercial center of Orange County. That's one of the reasons people like it, because they don't have to travel that far to go to work. Mm-hmm. So Lake Forest is close to Irvine. It has its own commercial center as well, albeit, of course, it's a little bit smaller. And then, obviously, Irvine is perennially ranked as the safest city in America with a population of 250,000 or greater. But if you actually look at some of the smaller cities here, so this is according to safewise.com, these cities actually end up being, quote, safer than Irvine. Irvine comes in at number 10, but it's a bigger city, right? So with bigger cities, you get bigger problems. But Lake Forest, if you actually look at the data that they used FBI data. Lake Forest actually comes in ahead of Irvine. So, that's just another thing to know in terms of that. And then obviously, Irvine is famous for the Irvine Unified School District.
Wait, I have to have my discussion.
Oh, yeah.
So just before we move on to that, as far as safety goes, I'm very specific about saying that this is a very subjective measure. So obviously you have the data. And actually many of these cities, like if you go into their police department, like the portals basically on their websites, they do have like more even granular statistics, about petty theft, robbery, whatever that might be.
Specific to neighborhoods.
Yes.
You might have to dig, but usually if you go to the police department of each city, you can see these little crime maps. So.
Yeah, so obviously there's tons of resources out there for you to kind of do some digging on your own. But also on top of that, the data doesn't tell the entire tale. That's why I always recommend that, because what I might think is safe or what you might think is safe could be completely different things. That's why I don't say, oh, this area is safe and this area is not, because I'm not you. I don't have your experience. I don't have where you're coming from, whatever that might be. So what I always recommend to people is that, hey, if you're really zeroing in on a neighborhood or there's a, like that you're kind of really thinking it's going to be a good fit, go ahead and check out that neighborhood different times of the day and in the evening, kind of get a feel. Okay, how does this feel to you? Because inevitably you're going to be living there, not me. So I want to make sure that you're comfortable. So you kind of have to do, this is and it being so subjective, this is something you really need to kind of do some digging on your own, like, do some actual like legwork basically.
Yeah, and then let's talk about the schools like I was mentioning before. Irvine is famous for the Irvine Unified School District, gets an A+ according to niche.com. But Lake Forest is part of the Saddleback Valley Unified School District, so it gets an A. It gets an A overall, so it's not like we're dealing with some insane difference between Irvine and Saddleback. And what's nice about niche.com too is that they'll give you a map. So these are all of the schools that are in this area, so you can just, it's a nice little resource for yourself.
Actually, this is actually interesting because obviously schools is more than just academics, right? There's, the athletics, there's a lot of other things. This is an actual fascinating stat that's number 26 out of the entire of school districts in California. So if you're, if you
for
have
athletes.
Because Orange County is a hotbed for athletes, right? Like this is
California too.
Yeah, so California,
yeah,
Southern California, Orange County,
yeah,
and then within South Orange County, you have tons of stuff going on here. Mm-hmm. So super big on athletics. So if you have an aspiring athlete as well, this is a great option as well, because so Saddleback Valley Unified School District is multiple cities, not just Lake Forest. So you have Lake Forest, parts of Mission Viejo, parts of Rancho Santa Margarita, as well as Laguna Hills. Like those are your primary areas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so it's kind of like you're kind of at a few different options with a city that encompasses multiple cities. There's multiple possibilities as far as where you might want your aspiring pupil to go.
Yeah, and then another nice thing about Saddleback, similar to Capistrano, which is also in South County, is that there are a lot of charter schools. And I know, depending on what state you're in, sometimes charter schools are like really bad, but in California, they tend to be ranked very high, and parents tend to like them because they often will have a different sort of philosophy. It's not just a regular, typical public school.
Yeah.
So Saddleback definitely has that. Oxford Preparatory Academy, if I'm remembering correctly, that's a very popular charter school within Saddleback Valley. So that's just a thing to know.
Yeah, and with any of these schools, it's not like you just automatically can get into them, right? So it's one of those things that you have to apply for.
It's a lottery in, right? Yeah. So, and then, we have heard just anecdotally that it is possible to transfer from school to school. But of course, again, that's not guaranteed, so you definitely need to do your research before you buy a home thinking that you're going to be able to switch schools. So.
Yeah, no, it is a lot easier than Irvine. Irvine, you're pretty dialed in. Wherever you're going to be is kind of where you're going to be. Like, whatever you're zoned for, there's not much opportunities. But Saddleback Valley, like Capistrano and Unified, there's more flexibility from that perspective. Again, not a foregone conclusion. And I always recommend, so you'll have these schools that have different grade ratings and stuff like that. The data's nice, but at the same time, that's one of those things where you may want to contact the school administrators and even to actually reach out to parents, maybe some Facebook groups or whatever. That really gives you a sense of, okay, how does that school, do you think that's a school that's the right fit for your child?
Yeah. So now let's just go back to Lake Forest and then just, give you a little bit of a map tour. Sean works a lot in Lake Forest, so he can tell you kind of the different areas, what everything's sort of known for, what you're going to see.
Well, I've got to show one thing.
What?
Okay, so we just have to talk about, so obviously you brought the border, which is fantastic, right? So we see this border here.
Yeah.
But a second thing is that, notice these freeways here, right? So you have the 5 freeway, which is, if you don't know Southern California, this is the major artery, or one of a handful, like the 405 actually is right here too.
Yeah.
2 major arteries in all of Southern California. In fact, the 5 freeway goes from the Mexican border all the way to the Canadian border. That's how this freeway runs. So it's a huge major freeway.
Yeah.
So Lake Forest actually has that, it touches the 5 freeway right here. So that's a huge thing. And then the second thing is you have this other freeway called the 241. Now this is a toll road. So this is, maybe depending on where you're from, toll roads are no big deal. For native Southern Californians, this is kind of a relatively new concept, and we kind of inherently
dislike it,
and we'll avoid it at all costs unless you actually absolutely need to do it. But it's one of those things where, depending on where you're from, what you're used to, just be aware that you do have this option. It is nice to have it because it is a quick, straight shot. So basically, now you will see that there's these roads here, right? These are major arteries. So like El Toro Road, this is like an 8-lane road. This is not like your typical, rural road that's a 2-lane road or anything like that. So these are huge arteries to get you in and out. So they do a pretty fantastic job. So between that, Lake Forest Parkway, as well as Bake Parkway, these are major roads to get you onto the 5 freeway and gone. So that is nice from that perspective because you have, unlike LA, you have alternative routes than just the freeways. Yeah. Like in LA, you're really stuck. And there's no good options. Not to say that Orange County has good traffic. In fact, depending on where you're from, you actually have pretty bad traffic. It's just that it's what degree of level of bad. And we are the least bad of the general Southern California area.
Yeah.
So there is that, right? So but we do have alternate routes, that you can use. Obviously, Tribuco that turns into Irvine Boulevard, which is nice as well. Alton is another one. There's so many alternate routes that are huge. Very big roads. So you have these options as well.
Yeah.
Basically, as far as in the Lake Forest area, so you have a lot of commercial stuff actually as you pretty much approach, the 5 freeway basically. So tons of retail establishments and stuff like that, like around here, like El Toro Road is, there's tons of stuff around here. So which is really nice. So you have lots of shopping options right within the city. And this is not just one part. This is just like the southernmost part of it. But then as you go up, so you obviously, as you know, these little water features.
The lakes.
These are the lakes of Lake Forest.
I think this is why people in Lake Forest hate us, because we make fun of the lake.
Because, it's not very large. It's just kind of a...
It's a very beautiful place to live. I'm not knocking it, but I find it weird that Lake Forest is called Lake Forest because these are the smallest little lakes you'll ever see.
You will see, though, as far as the forest part. So again, Forest Southern California City, we have a lot of eucalyptus forests here. Mm-hmm. Obviously not native,
yeah, they're from Australia.
From Australia. But it's kind of cool, actually, because you have, it has a very different vibe than what you think of.
It feels like a little forest.
Yeah, it is pretty cool from that perspective. But yeah, so this lake here, it's a private lake, but also, it's fine. It's just that it's not a very large, robust lake. Yeah. It's really no Lake Superior, right?
Or even Mission Viejo, if you want to just go back and just show.
That's fair. Yeah. So
it's a much bigger lake, and even that I would say is quite small.
It's a good size. This one is mostly little canals and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just, and obviously you're not going to it's not linking you to the ocean or anything like that. Yeah. It's a feature. It's there. I just find that Lake Forest name is kind of confusing because I guess the forest part can work, but the lake part is not so much.
Well, and also what's weird about it too is that the only people who can use that lake are the people that specifically live right there in that HOA. Whereas in Mission Viejo, at least if you're a resident of Mission Viejo, you can use the lake. I mean, so it's not like anyone can use the lake unless you own a house there. So it's very strange.
Yeah, and as far as the general feel of Lake Forest, you have a lot of stuff that was built in 1970s and up, right? I mean, like that's kind of where it was. Now you do have some newer things. So like Serrano, like these are these homes in these areas. Really cute location here. I really like it. These are homes that are like 2 and 3 car garages, you know, like built in again 70s, 80s is kind of when these were built primarily. People really like Serrano. So as we go up, so one of the newer communities is Baker Ranch, right? So Baker Ranch, this is like the community park. Actually, I think we were there a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So basically what you have here is that these are homes that are being built very recently and are continuing to be built to this day. So, and there's a ton of demand. People really like the new communities and that kind of stuff. So Baker Ranch, very sought after area. Foothill Ranch, which is actually was kind of like the newer one, built 1990s, 2000 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty popular. People like that a lot.
I mean, it's still popular, but it's just not new anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, what's the next new thing? Because again, you have to understand in Orange County, we have very little new developments. So when a new thing comes up, it gets a lot of interest. Portola Hills is another one that's actually being built to this day. So we're having like the Meadows is one, the Oaks. I mean, actually the Meadows is in Baker Ranch. The Oaks is one of the areas. But yeah, so Portola Hills, very popular area, newer homes and that kind of thing. And again, you have a lot of a mix of townhomes, but also houses and good sized houses too. So, and they can be actually gated communities as well. So what I will say though, is that this kind of is a nice little segue. As you see this development happening, you're kind of getting to this nice green area. And
but it's not green.
It's not so green. It's
brown.
Yeah, you're butting up against the Cleveland National Forest here. So just be aware that you have a higher than normal likelihood of forest fire issues. So it's just one of those things that's elevated forest fire danger. So, you know, you just have to take that, you know, so with that comes higher insurance rates most likely. And just one of those things that you just want to be, some people are totally freaked out by that. For me personally, as long as I'm not on the front line, because I just find it weird to be like on the front line of any sort of wilderness. You know, as long as I'm not on the front line, I am usually totally fine with it. It's just that being on the front line and just seeing vast, you know, just open space, I just don't like that level of just being that first line of improved properties.
Yeah, although we're less concerned partly because we're from Southern California, so it's just kind of something you live with your whole life. So, I mean, obviously everyone has a different, you know, understanding or a different fear level, I would say, of it. And if you know, want to, you can reach out to us and we can give you the Orange County Fire Authority's fire map. So they'll give you the areas that have heightened fire risk. Yeah,
and also you can find out, like, you know, from insurance agents, okay, well, how much would you know, insuring this property cost? Because obviously we want to make sure that you have a fully informed opinion about what's going on. So that way, you know, you can find it, does this make sense for you or not? Again, for me personally, I think that's a beautiful area, Portola Hills and, you know, Baker Ranch and Foothill Ranch, but at the same time, it's not for everybody. And that's why there's so many alternatives that, depending on what you're looking for, even within Lake Forest, obviously, you know, you can go south of the 241 if that's what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And Baker Ranch is actually just south of that. So there's just tons of different options here.
Well, and then also a lot of the homes that are south of 241, they tend to be older, you know, older speaking in quotations.
Except for Baker Ranch.
For Orange County, yeah, except for Baker Ranch. So obviously you're most likely not going to be dealing with Mello-Roos, which you would be in the newer communities.
In Baker Ranch, they have actually pretty nice setups that way.
Oh,
so yeah, so Lake Forest is kind of interestingly set up from that perspective. So, but again, that's where you reach out to us. We can actually tell you, like, okay, what communities, okay, what are the HOA dues, right? Because if you're in South Orange County, you're dealing with HOA most likely. Not to say that every property's got an HOA, but again, like many do. So we let you know, okay, what are the HOA dues? Sometimes you may have multiple, depending on what city you are. You could have multiple HOA dues. So we will let you know, okay, what is your total cost, right? So HOA dues, as well as, okay, what is your property tax rate? Because your property tax rate in general in Orange County is about 1.1% of the assessed value of the property at the time you purchase it. Now, depending if you do have Mello-Roos, that could tack on something a little bit or something rather significant. So it just really depends. And remember, we are licensed realtors here in the state of California. So as much as we love making these videos, what we love more is to help you with your real estate needs. So whether you're looking to buy or sell a home, what you want to do is you want to give us a call or shoot us a text.
Yes, that number is a cell phone, so you can call us or text us, or you can use WhatsApp if you're outside the country.